Paris, the magnificent capital of France, where people call it the City of Love, a symbol of European civilization, of art, of history, of light. But when you walk down this street, the first thing many people, including myself, feel is not beauty. It's not the smell of coffee. It's not hot bread, but it's the smell of pungent urine, the smell of damp garbage, the smell you only smell in places no one cares about anymore. Paris, in reality, is not like it is on postcards, nor is it like it is in movies. But it's Paris, where people walk faster to avoid dog poop, where cigarette butts cover the sidewalks, and where rats run across parks in broad daylight. This Paris is like an outdoor toilet covered in a layer of historical paint. And what's remarkable is that it's only a few minutes' walk from the Eiffel Tower. Why, after all, would one of Europe's richest and most powerful cities let itself become like this? And if this is the city of love, then when did that love disappear? I came to Paris with an image already prepared in my mind. Perhaps many people here are the same. Paris is the golden light of the evening. It's a glass of wine by the sidewalk. They are the streets that make you believe Europe once did everything right. That image has been repeated for decades, in films, travel advertisements, and on television. Paris is not just a city, it's a promise. But every promise has fine print, and not everyone sees it. Just a few hours after landing, I realized Paris in real life is not like Paris in my imagination. It's not because this city is ugly, but because the gap between expectations and reality is too large. A person living here told me, their voice very calm, "Paris is beautiful, but you have to learn not to look at the ground." That saying sounds like a joke, but not necessarily. Paris has over 200,000 dogs, which produce enough waste each day to fill a medium-sized truck. Each year, the city collects approximately 350 tons of cigarette butts, which, if gathered together, would be enough to fill over 30 double-decker buses. That's not a feeling, that's the volume. And as you walk on the sidewalk, you'll notice something interesting. Parisians walk very fast. It's not because they're in a hurry, and that's because they're used to avoiding things as an urban survival reflex. Expectations make us think of Paris as a living museum. Reality reminds us that this is a city of 2 million people, welcoming tens of millions of visitors each year, operating non-stop. Like an old, beautiful, but oil-leaking machine. And the question isn't, is Paris dirty? But rather, to what extent have we idealized Paris? And can any city bear the burden of its own legend? In the next part, I will take you to places where legend no longer applies. The streets not included in the brochure. The points where Paris began. To be honest, if you find what we're saying resonates with what you've thought before, perhaps you should stay. We've only just begun. My first destination is Gare du Nord, Barbès. This is not just a train station. It's the gateway. It's Paris's first handshake with the world. Most tourists, after exiting the Eurostar tunnel, will call a taxi or take the metro to leave this area as quickly as possible. But to truly and clearly experience it, I decided to walk and see what the neighborhood around the station looked like. Every day, over 700,000 people pass through. Imagine a packed stadium opening and closing 7 times in 24 hours. Stepping out of the station, Paris changes its tune. The advertising lights gave way to the gleaming road surface. Under the bridge, under the tracks, the temporary market bustled like a runaway machine. The smell I'm getting isn't the scent of a romantic Paris with baguettes and artisanal cheese. It's a mix of fishy smells, exhaust fumes, and dampness, all mixed together with food left out in the open. Stagnant water. The air thickened. There are no postcards taken from this angle, but this is where millions of people enter Paris every year. In Barbès, you can feel 2 parallel rhythms of life. Above is the train, on time, cold. Below is the noisy, crowded, and always overloaded ground. As the density of people increases, the space for order shrinks. No one needs to be bad. Just being too crowded is enough. Leaving this area, I continued walking. The sidewalks here are not for dreamers. It teaches you survival skills, eyes looking far ahead, feet moving quickly, short strides. Parisians walk very fast not because they're in a hurry, but because they're used to dodging. An elderly gentleman smiled. In Paris, you can learn many things that aren't taught in school. The most important thing is to look down. The numbers help us understand that feeling better. Paris has over 200,000 four-legged pets, and they generate 16 tons of waste every day. Every day, the amount of waste generated, if collected, is enough to fill a medium-sized truck. Previously, the city used vacuum trucks to handle their waste, but these machines only worked until the 1990s and then disappeared. Since 2002, the law has stipulated that dog owners are required to clean up. Although the situation has improved, it is not completely resolved. Additionally, there are hundreds of tons of cigarette filters each year if you line them up. You could cover an entire long avenue. That's not a judgment. That's the volume. My friend who was with me jokingly said that the sidewalks of Paris are like an open museum, not displaying paintings, but urban habits. Every step is a small compromise. Each time I dodged, it was an unconscious decision. And when a city gets its residents used to avoiding things, the question is no longer whether it's dirty or not, but how accustomed we've become to it. The paradox here is quite funny. Paris is very good at investing in culture. The only thing is, the sidewalk culture is developing faster than planned. Now, let's go to the park. Daytime. It's not a scene from a movie. A mouse appeared calmly, like a punctual resident, by the trash can, by the riverbank, where food is scattered. Estimates suggest there are several million individuals living alongside us. Imagine a second city, smaller, quieter, and more efficient because it feeds on what we leave behind. A report states that there are an estimated 4 million mice in Paris, which is 2 mice for every resident. They appear every place, in the trash, park, even in broad daylight. The city has spent over 1.5 million euros on the fight against rats, but the results are, as you can see, very limited, if not unchanged. Coming here, I realized Paris has 2 cities. One for tourists, beautiful, bright, and told over and over. One is for what operates beneath, silently, patiently, and very adaptably. The question for you is, which city is more sustainable? So, we've just passed through the gateway, the sidewalks, and the underground city. Not yet judged, not yet concluded. Just curious. Why would a magnificent capital like Paris allow these unsightly scenes to become so frequent? In the next part, we'll peel back that layer. Where does the real cause lie? With people, the system, or both? If you like this kind of straightforward analysis, stick with the channel. No need to make any promises, just as long as you're still curious. I want to be blunt. Paris isn't dirty because of a lack of money. Paris isn't dirty either because of a lack of cleaners. This city spends hundreds of millions of euros each year to clean the streets, with thousands of sanitation workers working from early morning until late at night. So why does the problem still exist? The answer doesn't lie in a single cause. It's located in many layers. It's like a French millefeuille, looks beautiful, tastes delicious, but when you take it apart, you realize every layer is stuck together. The first and most obvious class is population density and mass tourism. Paris is a small city in terms of area but extremely crowded. And not only many people live there, but also many people pass through. Gare du Nord is like a giant funnel every day, drawing people from all over Europe into it. When you have too many people constantly moving, the streets will be like a floor trampled on all day. No matter how many times you mop, it will still be dirty. Meanwhile, mass tourism creates a dangerous mindset. I'm just a passerby. Tourists don't feel like they belong here, so they don't feel the need to preserve it either. A vendor near Barbès told me, every day here is a new wave of people. People come and go, and no one thinks they have to take responsibility. Paris at that time was like an Airbnb rental house. Everyone stayed there, but no one considered it their own home. The second class that cannot be mentioned is street culture. Small habits that have big consequences. You can call this a lifestyle, or you can call it a bad habit. But the reality is that Paris has a few hard-to-break urban habits. Smoking a lot, having many dogs, and eating outdoors frequently. And every small action, when multiplied millions of times, becomes a sanitation crisis. A cigarette filter falling to the ground seems harmless, but when it turns into hundreds of tons per year, it's like the whole city is scattering breadcrumbs for mice. What about the dog? Paris has hundreds of thousands of pets, and everyone loves dogs. But the problem is, people love their dogs more than they love the shared sidewalk. A Parisian told me, half in jest, half seriously, "We have art, we have fashion, we have philosophy. The only thing missing is the culture of bending down to pick things up." That's a very Parisian saying, both graceful and painful. If you ask, why doesn't the government punish them? Do they have any laws for these behaviors? So the answer is that Paris is not lacking in laws. Even the fine isn't light. But what people know is, you're not punished for being wrong, but for being unlucky. You can throw away the cigarette butts 10 times without any problem. But the 11th time he met the right inspector, he was fined. So, the law is no longer the law. It became a lottery. A long-time resident here said, "In Paris, rules are something to hang on the wall, and the streets operate out of habit. And when the law isn't enforced consistently, people don't change their behavior. People only change their dodging skills." And this is the deepest layer. Paris is not just a city. Paris is an icon. It is a national brand. It is the political stage. Local authorities want to clean up, but they have to balance this with dozens of pressures. Traffic, environment, tourism, protests, budget, media, elections. The city is like a bus carrying too many people, and everyone wants to grab the steering wheel. And here's the cruelest irony. When everything is a priority, nothing is a priority in the end. Because if you take a strong hand, you'll be accused of oppression. If you go easy on them, you're called incompetent. And if you don't do anything, you still get yelled at, but at least you lose fewer votes. So, who is Paris dirty because of? For tourists? For the people? Because of the government? Or because a system is accustomed to living with degradation? Perhaps the most uncomfortable answer is because of everything. And since everyone contributes to the problem, the solution can't just be hiring more street sweepers. In the next part, we'll look at what Paris did: the budget, the sanitation team, the fines, the anti-rat campaign, and the most important question: why, after spending hundreds of millions of euros, is Paris still not as clean as promised? If you find these analyses worth continuing, stick with the channel. You don't need to trust me, just come with me a little further. If you think the Paris authorities are just sitting back and letting everything happen, you're wrong. To be fair, they've done quite a bit. The problem is, doing a lot doesn't mean doing it effectively. First of all, money. Paris spends about 550 million euros each year on urban sanitation. This number sounds dry, but imagine. It's a budget sufficient to operate an entire giant cleaning machine every day. The city has approximately 5,000 sanitation workers who collect nearly 3,000 tons of waste per day, equivalent to hundreds of continuously running garbage trucks. Regarding laws and punishments, Paris has no shortage of measures. If caught littering or discarding cigarette butts, the fine could be around 68 euros, and they have also established a dedicated team, like a civil patrol, to address such irresponsible behavior. It sounds serious. And it's true. It's serious. Additionally, residents can report dirty spots through an app similar to "There's a problem in my neighborhood," so the city can dispatch a cleaning team. On paper, this system is quite modern. It's like Paris is trying to turn urban sanitation into a form of rapid response service. And what about the mice? Paris has also spent money on control campaigns, but anyone who has lived here for a long time will tell you in a whisper, mice in Paris are not tourists. They are long-term residents. The problem lies here. Many solutions are only effective in the short term. Clean today, and a few days later, it's back to the same. Punish today, and tomorrow people will forget again. And here's a painful but true satire. Paris can buy more garbage trucks, but it can't buy more consciousness. Here's a question for you. If you were the mayor, what would you choose first? Increasing fines, hiring more cleaners, or changing the culture? In the next part, we will look at the cost. What does Paris lose when dirt becomes a collective habit? And that's much more dangerous than garbage. You can clean up a street in one morning, but you can't clean up something else, a reputation. Paris was once a symbol of Europe, a place where just mentioning the name brings to mind art, civilization, and history. But when a city is associated with images of trash, cigarette butts, and street corners with unpleasant odors, then the issue is no longer about hygiene. It's a national brand. A taxi driver told me, his voice despondent, customers don't ask about the Eiffel Tower first anymore. They asked, which areas should be avoided? That's a very expensive saying, because it shows that Paris is losing the most precious thing in tourism, the feeling of safety and relaxation. A city of love where tourists must be constantly vigilant. What kind of love can survive there? But the deeper consequences lie with the people. When you live long enough in a degraded environment, you no longer get angry. You're just used to it. And that's when it got scary. A city that doesn't collapse because of garbage. It collapsed when people got used to the garbage. When people stop complaining, stop demanding, stop believing things can be better, then Paris will not only lose its cleanliness, Paris has lost faith, but trust is lost. And no matter how much more money is poured in, it's just like mopping up water on a leaking ship. And finally, urban pride. A city that once made its residents hold their heads high now makes them walk faster, bow down more, and avoid more. Paris isn't just dirty. Paris is tired. The question is, does this only happen in Paris? Here's a sign for all of Europe when great cities quietly begin to decline. Now, we'll talk about the solution. What can Paris do? And are the current measures truly strong enough? Or are they just a hasty makeover for the media? If you ask if Paris can be clean again, the answer is maybe. But if you ask if Paris is willing to pay the price to clean up, then that's the real question. On paper, the solution sounds very simple. Punish more severely, install more cameras, increase patrol teams, add more trash cans. It's even possible to expand rapid response team-style campaigns to address hotspots on the same day. But Paris is not short of plans. Paris lacks something else. Consistency. A person who lives near Gare du Nord told me, they clean up in the morning. By evening, it was back to normal. Paris is like someone who wears beautiful clothes but refuses to bathe. That sentence is a bit harsh. But it's very true, because if you punish without regular checks, the law is just a piece of paper hanging on the wall. If you install a camera without processing, it's just a high-tech decoration. If the government is still afraid of conflict, even after educating the public, then that's the kind of education for good people. And here's the key point. Paris can't be clean if people don't see the consequences of making it dirty. No one changes their behavior just because of a beautiful speech. People change when the cost becomes real. But this also raises another question. Is Paris willing to become a tougher, more serious, less romantic city in order to be cleaner? Will Paris choose the familiar modern European approach? Spend more budget, come up with more slogans, and then hope the problem disappears on its own? And if you think this is just garbage, then in the conclusion, we'll talk about something Paris is losing that's much bigger. The identity, confidence, and self-esteem of a city that was once a symbol of an entire continent. Paris is still beautiful. No one denies that. But Paris today is like an expensive antique clock. The exterior still sparkles, but the gears inside are starting to get stuck. And the real question isn't, is Paris dirty? But rather, what does a great city do when it begins to lose its self-esteem? And if Paris is still struggling with something as basic as street cleaning, what does that say about the state of European cities in general? Now it's your turn. Do you think Paris is deteriorating because of mass tourism, street culture, or because the governance system has lost control? Leave a comment. I read everything, and I'd like to hear your perspective. If you like straightforward, no-frills analysis that doesn't read media scripts, consider subscribing to the channel. It's not to support me, but so we can continue to dissect the things people usually avoid. This video reflects real-life experiences, public data, and personal opinions gathered during filming. The content is not intended to attack any individual or community. The sole objective is to analyze social phenomena from a journalistic, investigative perspective. See you in the next episode. And remember, sometimes the truth lies in the streets no one photographs.